time. No one has yet invented a time machine. But the closest I think that we might be able to come to at least imagining a time machine is visiting a site such as Tal Hisban. Here we have the testimony of life lived on the ground through the millennia and the centuries. The story of Hisban is really two stories. It's a story of local survival by a local people and a story of great empires marching through the region. The story of the local people you will see in what we call the Hardy People Cave, which is one of the first things that you find as you hike up the mound.
We're in Hardy People's Cave, and I'm currently climbing out of a storage cistern that's about 20 feet deep. We're not sure what it was used for, whether it was water storage or storage of dry goods, but it's full of sediments that contain numerous artifacts, and we've currently got an excavation unit in the bottom that's about 7 feet deep.
Also in the Hardy People's Cave are a series of cisterns. This one is approximately 5 meters in diameter and about 7 meters in depth. What these were used for, we're not sure. Most likely water storage. And behind me, Wes and Audrey are excavating a test unit or probe into deposits that have accumulated in this, what we think is a storage room. And we're looking for evidence what the room may have been used for. And to date, what we're finding are quite a bit of animal bone, such as the pieces I have here, and quite a bit of ceramic or pottery fragments, such as this one in my right hand.
As you go on up the hill, you will see a big reservoir. This reservoir was built by the people who lived here, probably the Ammonites in the 9th century, late 10th century BC. This reservoir is one of the largest that have been found from this period anywhere in Palestine and Jordan. It's about 8 meters by 8 meters square and then as deep or more. And so it would have collected a lot of water. It's high up there. Sometimes it has been associated with the pools of Hisban mentioned in Song of Solomon, chapter 7, where Solomon is excited about the beauty of his Shulamite girl whose eyes are like the pools of Hisban. Then, as you proceed on up through the steps, first you will see a Byzantine church, apse of a basilica church, but that basilica church was really built from stones stolen from the earlier Roman temple, which had set on that same location. So there you have it. One civilization comes and replaces another, and as they do, they take materials accumulated by the one and they reuse it for their new template, which in this case is the Byzantine church. So later on then, in the 13th, 14th, and 15th century, we had a group of people here from the Islamic Ayyubid and Mamluk civilizations. And they took the materials accumulated by the earlier Byzantines and Romans, and now they built a little fortress for a governor of the Balka who lived in this little residential palace. He even had a beautiful bath that he could use to regale his guests.
medieval bathhouse sits on top of two other much earlier structures, and the sequence of those pieces of architecture actually tell us a very interesting story about Hisban and its long history of occupation. The bathhouse sits directly on top of the western end of a Byzantine basilica, which sits directly on top of what may be a Roman temple.
At this moment we're excavating in the Mamluk citadel on top of Tel Hisban. The Mamluk citadel, according to work done by Dr. Bethany Walker, went through several phases during the Mamluk period, moving from a mainly residential function to a military function. The area we're excavating right now will hopefully clarify the phases that I'm talking about, especially by finding out more about the relationship of the structures and walls, which are really complicated in this area. The students are working in this area, which is probably an extension of the storerooms, but they're also working at the bottom of this platform, trying to clarify the relationship between the bath and the storerooms. We have just found from this excavation a fragment of a Mamluk bowl and fragments of a sugar pot, which we find in large number from excavations at this area, since it was intensely occupied during the Mamluk period.
So even though we had come here to look for a great historic event, in the end, the project ended up reinventing itself by focusing on the daily life of people who have lived here through time. And this has led to a wholly new mission for the work here in Hisban. We now see our mission to be to study the changes over time in the daily life of people. And those changes have involved changes in how they live. Sometimes they have lived more like nomads. Other times they've been more settled, living in villages and towns, raising sheep and goat and cereals. But over time we know that they have shifted back and forth depending on opportunities and threats between a nomadic and a sedentary way of life. Now these ways of the local people are what we sometimes call the little traditions. It's how people have survived. They are traditions that are passed on from one generation to the next without being written down, without having any great library that preserves their knowledge. Instead, all of their knowledge is preserved through tradition. Now, in contrast to these little traditions that have made it possible for people to live here through the centuries, we have another set of forces that have impacted the archaeological record of Hisban. These are foreign or imported forces that are the result of conquering empires, great religious movements. These we might call the great traditions. And examples of these would be, for example, the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire can be seen in its footprints in the churches. We have 3 basilica churches in Hisban, 1 at the summit and 2 in the foothills around Hisban. These are classic 6th century basilica with mosaic floors and columns, beautiful buildings of which we still have many of the foundation parts. Another very powerful footprint was that of the Romans, and we know from the building material that they produced that we had on Hisban a very nice acropolis. The Romans built a series of steps that led up to the site, and then at the summit they put in a temple, possibly a temple to Jupiter. We even have a coin that depicts this temple built by the Romans. during the periods when these great traditions were dominating, people went on living their daily lives, and so you have these two parallel stories. So the task of archaeology in Hisban is to ferret out these two stories and how they have interacted. So after having toured the different places, the ruins in Hisban, you must just take a few minutes to sit on the summit and look out and reflect upon what it is that you have just experienced. I think about the thousands of hours that we have put into working here together with the local workmen of Hisban, and the bridge building that has occurred over 40 years of collaboration. We have brought students here summer after summer, and they have learned from the hospitality of the local people what Jordanians and the Arab culture, and as a result, this site has become a monument to bridge building between the East and the West. And archaeology to me is more than just studying the past. It is truly an avenue of encounter. We don't travel in a bubble when we do archaeology. We actually get out and we live it, and we become acquainted with the local people, and we come to know them and they come to know us. And this is to me the ultimate benefit of archaeology. It brings people together from different cultures. They have to learn how they work, these different cultures. And there are mistakes, but we have, in the end, a opportunity to build bridges through archaeology that is probably unprecedented in any form of education that we try to do in our classrooms. Here in this site, you see two great stories interacting. The story, on the one hand, of these imperial footprints that we've already talked about, but more importantly, the story of a local people who have survived to being resilient. They have managed to reinvent themselves as different empires have come and gone. And in the end, the story of sustainability, which is so important to much development today, is a story we can best learn through the study of the deep time of archaeology, the kind of deep time perspective that we get at a site like this.